The grand chamber of the Quorum of War was silent. Hundreds of alien leaders sat in a massive circular hall, their glowing eyes fixed on the center stage. The vote had been cast. Humanity would be exterminated. Ambassador Daniel Cross stood alone in the middle of the chamber. He was the last hope for Earth. The rules were clear. If he could convince just one alien leader to change their vote before the war began, humanity would be spared. But time was running out. A robotic voice echoed through the chamber. The decision has been made. The war against humanity begins in 6 hours. Daniel clenched his fists. He had prepared for this moment, but now, standing in front of the most powerful beings in the galaxy, he felt small. He cleared his throat and stepped forward. "Wait," he said, his voice strong. "This vote is a mistake." Laughter rippled through the room. A reptilian warlord from the Dravos Empire leaned forward. "The Quorum does not make mistakes, human. Your kind is weak. You cannot win." Daniel ignored him. He had studied every leader here, learned their fears, their ambitions. He turned to Chancellor Varix, the leader of the Zephyr Union, a species known for their cold logic. "Chancellor, tell me, what does humanity have that no other race has?" Varix blinked his luminous green eyes. "Nothing," Daniel smiled. "You're wrong. We have something no species in this room understands. We don't quit," the chamber murmured. The Quorum of War had crushed thousands of civilizations. None had resisted. None had survived. Daniel continued. "Every species here fought their wars when they were ready, when they had superior numbers, advanced technology. But humans? We fight when we have nothing. We fight when we are outnumbered, outgunned, and on the brink of death. And we don't stop." The warlord from Dravos hissed. "More foolish human bravado." Daniel's eyes locked onto his. "Do you know how many times we should have died? We fought wars with sticks and stones. We fought empires 10 times our size. We fought enemies who had weapons we couldn't even understand. And yet, here we stand. Do you really think this war will be easy?" Silence filled the room. The leaders had seen the reports humanity's primitive weapons, their small fleets. But Daniel saw something in their eyes. Doubt. Varix finally spoke. "Even if you fight, you will lose." Daniel took a deep breath. "Maybe. But what if we don't? What if humanity does what it has always done? What if we win?" The chamber shifted. No one had considered that. No species had ever survived a war against the Quorum. But humanity was different. They were unpredictable. Dangerous. Varix tapped his fingers against the table. His people valued logic, strategy. If the war wasn't guaranteed, then the vote wasn't perfect. Daniel pressed on. "If you attack Earth, we won't just fight. We will adapt. We will learn from you. And we will become stronger. And if we win, your Quorum will fall." The words echoed. The Quorum had ruled for centuries because their decisions were absolute. If humanity broke that pattern, others would rise against them. Varix leaned back. His green eyes flickered. Then he turned to the robotic speaker. "I change my vote." The chamber erupted in chaos. The warlord slammed his fist on the table. "You cannot do this." Varix remained calm. "The rules are clear. A single changed vote nullifies the war." The robotic voice spoke. "The war against humanity is canceled." Daniel exhaled. The weight of Earth had been on his shoulders, and he had won. As he walked out of the chamber, he could feel the alien leaders watching him. Some with hatred, some with respect. But one thing was clear. Humanity had just changed the galaxy forever, and the Quorum of War would never be the same again. The Quorum of War had spoken. The decision was final. Humanity would be destroyed. On the capital planet of Zethar Prime, alien leaders from across the galaxy gathered in a massive chamber. The vote had been unanimous. Earth was weak, unworthy, and no match for the advanced armies of the Quorum. The war would be swift. Grand Marshal Exortal, the supreme commander of the invasion forces, stood before the council. His insectoid eyes gleamed with satisfaction. The human homeworld will fall within a single cycle. Their armies are primitive, their ships outdated. They will not survive. The alien leaders nodded in agreement. They had crushed thousands of civilizations before. Humanity would be no different. But they were wrong. The invasion begins. The first wave of the Quorum's fleet arrived in Earth's orbit with overwhelming force. Thousands of warships, each armed with devastating energy weapons, positioned themselves above major cities. They expected a surrender. They expected fear. Instead, they found silence. The fleet sensors detected no large armies preparing for battle, no planetary shields, no defense fleets waiting in orbit. Earth seemed empty. Confused, Grand Marshal Exortal sent a transmission. Humans, your planet is under the control of the Quorum. Surrender now, and you will be spared. For long moments, there was no reply. Then, a single message came through. A human voice, calm and confident. You should not have come here. Then, the war truly began. The trap closes before the aliens could react. The sky above Earth burned. Massive explosions tore through the Quorum's warships. Entire fleets vanished in seconds. Sortal's screens filled with warnings. Unknown weapon detected. Casualties rising. We are under attack. But there was no enemy fleet. No visible warships. The attacks were coming from the planet itself. From the very land they thought was defenseless. Hidden deep within Earth's mountains, oceans, and underground cities were weapons the Quorum had never seen before. Stealth railguns that fired at near light speed. AI-controlled missile swarms that adapted mid-flight. Electromagnetic pulses that shut down entire enemy systems. Every time the aliens tried to counterattack, their systems failed. Their ships shut down mid-flight. Their weapons turned against them. Panic spread through the Quorum's forces. This was not a weak enemy. This was a trap. The unseen enemy Exortal's mind raced. How did the humans do this? They were supposed to be primitive, inferior. Then he realized the truth. The humans had been watching them, studying them. For years, Earth had let the Quorum believe they were weak. They had faked their technology levels, hiding their true strength. They had leaked false information to alien spies. They had waited for the Quorum to attack first so they could strike when their enemy was most vulnerable. And now, it was too late. Across the Quorum's fleet, human cyber warfare programs took control. Alien ships turned against each other. Some self-destructed without warning. Others fired on their own allies. The invasion fleet collapsed into chaos. Sortal could only watch as his empire's might was torn apart by an enemy they had never understood. The message from Earth: the few Quorum ships that managed to escape the battle fled back to their homeworlds, carrying the terrifying truth: humanity was not weak. They were not prey. They were hunters. ASX Sortal's personal ship retreated. He received a final transmission. A human general appeared on the screen. His expression was calm, but his eyes were cold. You thought we were powerless. You thought this would be easy. You never asked why we never fought back before. But now you know. We don't start wars. The screen flickered. We finish them. And then the transmission ended. Sortal slumped in his chair. The war was over before it had even begun. And the Quorum of War would never make the same mistake again. The Quorum of War had ruled the galaxy for centuries. Every species feared them. Every planet obeyed their laws. When they decided a civilization must fall, no one questioned it. No one fought back. Until now. Because this time, they made a mistake. They thought humanity would be easy to erase. They did not expect James Carter. The last survivor, James Carter, was not a soldier. He was not a politician. He was just a man who got caught in the middle of something too big to understand. The Quorum had voted to wipe out Earth. The war was swift and brutal. Billions died in days. The Quorum's fleets turned cities to dust. Their war machines crushed everything in their path. And yet, somehow, James survived. Now he was the last human alive. He woke up in a cold, dark prison cell on Zithar Prime, the heart of the Quorum's empire. They had captured him, not because he was special, but because he was an accident, just another prisoner from a defeated world. They did not see him as a threat. That was their second mistake. The escape-the-cell door hissed open, and two alien guards stepped inside. They were twice his size, covered in thick armor. They grabbed him roughly, dragging him down a long metallic hallway. He played along, keeping his head down. They thought he was broken, weak, but James had been watching. Studying. As they passed a security panel, he made his move. A single, precise strike to the alien's throat. The guard staggered back, gasping for air. The second guard reached for his weapon too slow. James grabbed his arm, twisted, and snapped it like a twig. In seconds, both guards were on the floor. He took one of their weapons and ran. Alarms blared across the prison. Security drones activated. James had no plan, no backup, and no chance of survival. But he kept moving. He was just one human against an entire alien empire. And he was not going to die in a cage. The war begins. James hacked into a security terminal. The information on the screen made his heart race. The Quorum thought Earth was dead, but they were wrong. There were survivors, hidden colonies, underground resistance. Humanity was still fighting. And now they had a chance. James found a docking bay filled with alien fighters. He sprinted towards the closest ship, dodging gunfire. A plasma blast grazed his shoulder, burning his skin. He gritted his teeth and kept running. The controls were alien, unfamiliar. But James was human. Adaptation was in his blood. The ship roared to life. As he blasted out of the hangar, enemy fighters pursued him. He weaved through the city skyline, dodging energy beams, flying on pure instinct. Then he sent a single transmission to the resistance. Earth is not dead. I'm coming home. The Quorum's Pharaon, the Quorum's capital world, the Supreme Chancellor watched the escape unfold. His advisors stood behind him, silent and nervous. One human, the Chancellor muttered. Just one. He turned to his generals. Find him. Kill him. But deep down, he already knew. It was too late. The war they thought was over was only just beginning. The Quorum of War had ruled the galaxy for centuries. Their decisions were absolute. When they chose war, civilizations vanished. When they chose peace, planets survived. No one questioned them. Until today. Because today, the fate of humanity rested on a single decision. The vote for extinction. The Grand Hall of the Quorum of War was silent. Alien leaders from across the galaxy sat in massive thrones, their glowing eyes fixed on the center platform. The vote was about to be cast. Humanity had been labeled a threat. They were unpredictable, reckless, and refused to submit. The Quorum believed that, given time, humans would become too dangerous. The solution? Destroy Earth before it was too late. The Supreme Chancellor raised his clawed hand. Let the final vote begin. Lights blinked on across the chamber. One by one, the alien leaders cast their decisions. Yes. Yes. Yes, humanity would be erased. But then, something unexpected happened. One vote stands alone as the final leader prepared to vote. He hesitated. Chancellor Valor of the Zephyr Union. A being of logic. His kind did not act on emotion. They made decisions based on facts, probability, and risk. Why all calculations humanity should be destroyed. They were aggressive. Their technology advanced too quickly. The safe choice was to remove them before they could challenge the Quorum's rule. But something about the decision felt wrong. Valor had studied humans. He had watched them rise from nothing, struggle against impossible odds, and survive where others had fallen. They did not fear war. They did not surrender. And unlike the Quorum, who ruled through fear, humans fought for something else. Each other. He thought of their history, their wars, their sacrifices. Every time they were outnumbered, they adapted. Every time they were beaten down, they came back stronger. If the Quorum attacked Earth, there would be no surrender. Humanity would fight until the end. And if they survived, they would never forgive. Valor's mind raced. A war with humanity would not be like the others. The Quorum might win, but it would cost them everything. For the first time in his life, he was afraid. He made his decision. Valor reached forward. Instead of voting yes, his hand hovered over no. Then he pressed it. The galaxy tremblesome murmur swept through the chamber. The Supreme Chancellor's eyes narrowed. Valor, explain yourself. The Zephyr leader stood. His voice was calm but firm. I refuse to vote for humanity's destruction. The room erupted in outrage. This is treason. The vote must be unanimous. You risk the future of the Quorum. Valor raised a hand, silencing them. No. I am ensuring the future of the Quorum. He turned to the Supreme Chancellor. Attack Earth, and they will fight. They will adapt. And if they win, the Quorum will fall. The chamber fell into stunned silence. Valor's voice did not waver. We have ruled through fear for centuries. But what happens when we meet a species that does not fear us? No one answered, because they all knew. The aftermath, the Supreme Chancellor's jaw clenched. His claws tapped against the armrest of his throne. He did not like this. But he was no fool. Humanity was unpredictable. If they survived an attack, their revenge would be unstoppable. Finally, he spoke. The war against humanity is cancelled. The words shook the chamber. The Quorum had never backed down before. And yet, because of one vote, everything had changed. The human response on Earth, deep within a hidden military bunker, a group of humans watched the intercepted transmission. The Quorum had chosen not to attack. For now, a general turned to the others. His expression was grim. They hesitated this time. They won't hesitate forever. The humans understood the truth. This was not the end. This was the beginning. And the day the Quorum decided to return, humanity would be ready. For centuries, the Quorum of War ruled the galaxy with an iron fist. They destroyed planets, crushed rebellions, and silenced any species that dared to resist. They believed they were unstoppable, until they met humanity. The final invasion, the Supreme Chancellor of the Quorum stood on the bridge of his massive warship, staring at the blue planet below. Earth. The humans had survived their first war with the Quorum. Worse, they had fought back. In the years that followed, humanity became something the Quorum had never faced before, a real threat. The Supreme Chancellor's voice was cold. We should have wiped them out when we had the chance. Now, it was too late. The battle begins. Thousands of Quorum warships entered Earth's orbit. Their weapons charged, ready to turn the planet into dust. They had done this 100 times before. But this time, something was different. As the first plasma cannons fired, the beams vanished midair. A strange ripple spread through space. Then, Earth's skies came alive. From hidden bases across the planet, thousands of human ships launched at once. Faster, more advanced than anything the Quorum had seen before. They were waiting for this. The trap had been set. The fall of the invincible Quorum warships tried to fight back, but their weapons failed. Their shields collapsed. Their ships shut down without warning. Panic spread. What's happening? Our systems are compromised. It's human technology. The humans had spent years studying the Quorum ships, learning their weaknesses, and creating weapons designed to break them apart. Now the mighty Quorum fleet was falling. The hunter becomes the hunted. The Supreme Chancellor watched in horror as human ships tore through his fleet. Massive Quorum warships exploded, one after another. It wasn't a battle. It was a massacre. Then, a transmission appeared on his screen. A human general. Calm. Unshaken. This is your last war. The Chancellor's blood turned cold. For centuries, the Quorum had ruled through fear. But now, the galaxy was no longer afraid. Other species, once too terrified to fight, joined humanity's side. They had suffered under the Quorum's rule. Now, they saw a chance for freedom. And they took it. The end of the Quorum Supreme Chancellor's warship was the last one standing. His fleet was gone. His empire was dying. He had only one choice left. He could surrender, or he could run. With trembling hands, he activated the ship's stealth drive and vanished into the void. The war was over. The Quorum, the most feared empire in the galaxy, was finished. A new era as the last Quorum ship disappeared. Humanity stood victorious. They had not just won a war. They had changed the galaxy forever. And from that day forward, one truth remained clear: no one would ever threaten humanity again.